So, good evening and welcome to episode 4 of They Call Me Coach. This week we're welcoming our guest, Matt Johnson from Reading Rockets. Hi, Matt.
Good evening, CJ. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm very good. It does seem a bit surreal because I think we could describe ourselves as friends.
Yeah, I mean,
We've known each other
loosest of
for a long
terms.
time. I know your wife very well.
Yeah, and I know yours very well.
You That sounds so dodgy, but
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
we
yeah,
do we have known each other for a long time. But thank
yeah.
you so much for coming onto the show. As I say every week, this is not a journalistic show. This is simply a series of conversations with coaches that I know, respect, have wanted to talk to for a variety of reasons. Maybe I like how they play the game or coach the game. Maybe I like the haircut or the cut of the pants that they're wearing on a particular day. So yeah, you're one of the ones I chose based on your haircut. Um,
Yeah, couldn't be anything else, so thank you.
no. Now, to start the show, what I normally do is I ask the
Yeah,
guests to give me a kind of 2 minute summary of their coaching journey. Like, how did they get into the game, and how did they go from maybe playing into coaching? But this week, I'm going to try something a little bit different because if I think back to when I first met you, which was about I want to say it was about 1995, 94.
yeah.
Um,
Before
you
that,
were
I had,
studying. You were.
yeah,
Look, I'm going to tread on very, very kind of dangerous ground here. But given that we're both fathers, we're both married, and we're both professionals, and we want to make sure we've got children, wives, and jobs at the end of this interview, I will tread carefully. So
yeah,
yeah, you were a student at at a university, Brunel University, which was known to me as Borough Road at the time. You were
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
famous Borough Road boys,
yeah, yeah,
um, and we met at a tournament in Bradford, which is the Maybank tournament, which
yeah,
I think this year was the first year it didn't run.
yeah, yeah.
So over that kind of
Great days.
25-year period, it's run every single year, almost without fail. Um, Great tournament.
Mm.
Very different time in our lives to the place we are now. Um, but if you'd told me then, 25 years ago, that a guy that I was sitting opposite in a curry house with only one eyebrow would be talking to me now about the journey that he's had through the game of basketball and that we'd still know each
Mm.
other, I definitely would not have believed that for a second.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
agree with
can
you,
you
mate.
tell me how we got from that curry house to where we are now?
Wow. Probably stumbled, I would imagine, but I think that you're right. Fond memories for me. Brunel Borough Road at the time was the next stage on. I was at Thames Valley Tigers as a junior, living in Reading and having to travel to Bracknell. So I was playing. I was just playing a bit of school and went to a camp with Mark Dunning at Loddon Valley up the road and Steve Tucker, who was coaching at Hawaii Pacific, I think at the time, and Charles Bannerman and some other guys. And they just said, "Oh, you enjoy it and come along to a team." That was me, hook, line, and sinker under 17s, 19s at Thames Valley, and their BBL team at the time was a Story team with Paul James and I think Kevinson Kitts and Scantlebury and some legends of the game. And I used to go and watch them play at Loddon Valley. And one day that Paul James waved at me, and I thought, fantastic, this is amazing. And 3 years later, they give me a call. Oh, we've only got 9 at training. Can you come down? And I went down, and I was just that kid. I was just the kid that was just so happy with being around the game, and I didn't even know the game really was the real thing until I was about 15, 16, 17. And then friends of mine from Theo Green had gone to Brunel and Borough Road and said, "Look, come here, we do basketball." And I was going to study sport anyway, so it all made sense. And I kept travelling back to Bracknell to play for the under-23s or the B team and whatever, and loved it. Went to uni, and then that's, to be honest, I've known that I'm okay leading, and I'm relatively confident. So I'd been the captain of the uni team, and the second year at uni, they said, "Look, we've voted you as the as the player coach, and I was like, I wasn't even at the meeting, but it was, and we had over 150 guys turn up for trials back then, and I didn't know what I was doing really, and just sort of dropped into, we got to organise this and get it done, and we were playing Loughborough, and we get to the final four every year. We'd normally lose to Loughborough or Oxford Uni, and they're one of those guys. But it was just fantastic memories, and we'd play every day. We'd go to the hall whenever we didn't have class and play, and that was the beginning of the taste of the game. And I left uni really happy and looked for teams and got invited to play down in Bournemouth in Division 1 at the time, and semi-pro, and they gave us a room in a flat down there at Boscombe Pier, and started. And then my dad and myself, we were obviously a very close family, was having, he would travel down and he helped out a bit. And one day I was sitting there after about a year saying, this isn't what I thought it would be. Like I just felt basketball had more to me, and there was no clubs where I'd ever been where the focus was on youth, and it was all just on that sort of senior team. And in Bournemouth, we sat down in a room, and me and my dad went, should we start our own club? I'd played at Slough with Poole Dolphins. I played at Slough Chargers that were the bottom of Division 1 and got a few minutes there, and just said, yeah, you know what, I think we can do this. And then I moved back home. Mum and Dad let me move back home. And I was telling someone the other day, actually, this is genuine. Me and my dad sat up, and we weren't asked to. We just started writing what we wanted from a club if we're going to start one in Reading. And we were up every night till like 4 or 5 in the morning. My mum would get up, bring us tea, then go back to bed. And then it would get light. I'd go to bed, and my dad would just sleep for an hour and then get up and do a day's work. And we did that for about nigh on 2 weeks. It was, and not because we had to. It's just we had so much to write. I think he wrote some like 45 pages of what we did. We were just talking about how it needed to be. And that was like the birth of the idea behind it. There was a bit of basketball in Reading, but not a lot. And then, I loved playing. I absolutely loved playing. It was me. I wasn't great, but I could dive on a ball, and I could be a really good teammate, and I was a good listener, and I was good at getting other guys involved, and I knew what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And I thank my parents for that. And then the journey I went on with coaches we're very, very fortunate to land Coach Titmus in the early days at Reading. And the thing that Dad and me both agreed, and we said, we'll sign a coach before we sign the players. So if we had any money to spend, we'd spend it on a coach, because that's kind of what we felt was the right thing to do. And we also agreed that we would only ever do it if it was right for the kids. So we started off with me and 8 mates from uni, and we said, right, but we need to start a junior team. And we had one bunch of, I don't know, about 10 kids, I think it wasn't many. And then when the club sort of finally formed itself, we started with one team and a men's team and a boys team of whatever age. But it was always going to grow. It was always going to be a proper program for kids. So coaching for me was, I knew I would get there. And in fact, I nearly retired a year earlier. And I said to Coach T at the time, I said, look, I'm thinking of quitting. I think I was 29, maybe. I don't really know. And he said, look, Graham Jones and Ronnie Heath, who are now at Create Development, they both said, look, you're a long time retired. So I was doing Millfield camps, was going to move on to that. And they gave me some great advice. So I stayed another year, and we won the National Cup. I was captain. I didn't play a load, but there's some just amazing experiences. So whenever anyone says, now I'm thinking of retiring, I say, well, you retire for a very long time. So coaching has been there from the beginning, really, but more of just for fun. And then when the club came in, it became, it took over my life. And I was doing my level 1, my level 2, my level 3. I was churning through as much as I could get my hands on. So, and that's the guy after I left uni, really, who was moving into that phase of my life.
So 29 doesn't seem particularly old to quit playing the game. What was
Yeah.
the what was the defining decision that made you decide that you were going to transition from playing into coaching? Was it your body? Was it that your body was giving up, or
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
that you just felt a desire to make that transition?
There's a couple of things. One, physically, it wasn't too bad. It doesn't look it now, but I was all right. I could make my way through Division 1, but it wasn't. I'd done as much as I felt I needed to do, and I needed to move on to get to the next phase. And I was really, by the time I was 29, I'd done my level 3 coaching qualification. I'd started coaching, a lot. I was doing 25 hours a week in the community. I was doing the club stuff. It was becoming huge to me. So it wasn't a difficult decision, and I missed it. I missed playing because we're really close as a group of mates, and we absolutely loved it, and I loved it as well. But I would say it wasn't too difficult because I'd had such great experiences with Coach Titmus for 9 8 years, and other guys I'd had before that. But when you work with a guy like that as a player, I gave him everything I had, and it was more than enough for me. It satisfied my taste, and I tried to play. Honestly, I tried to play Division 4 for our second team, and then I realised that actually I was bad. But it's just sort of, it was then. Then I realised I was mismatched. I was like, I've been playing Division 1 for so long that I wasn't being fair to others around me. I was being overly critical and all that. So I just said, no, that's enough. So I just stopped and went right headlong into coaching.
Okay, so you're a coach and you'd actually been coaching for a little while by that point. What would you say defines you specifically as a coach? Like, what are I guess, the values, the characteristics, the type of
Mm.
basketball that defines you as Matt Johnson, the coach?
Goodness me, that's a big
I
hitter,
know
isn't it? That what a
that's so
question that
much.
is.
You
Okay, thanks,
answer the
bud.
bits you like or remember.
Yeah, I think it's really important to me, and I've always kept close to me people that are very critical about me, because I think it's very easy to get carried away with your own ego, and I've certainly been, accused, and would stand and say, yeah, that was me as a younger coach, because you can get very quickly up to an echelon that maybe you wouldn't be able to in another country. So I think being honest has been kind of something that I would try and put on my CV. That I like to think that I've always been relatively honest as where I can be, and I think with players that's been something that I've enjoyed with them. And I'm also very quick to say, and I was very quick. I was really passionate when I was young. I was aggressive and shouty, and I thought that was the way because that's what I'd seen and everything else. But I've never been afraid to question it. I've never been afraid to say I'm not very good at that, and I think that's just the way I've been brought up with my parents, and just as my family. It's really held me in much better stead. I've had really difficult times as a player, as a coach, been really in difficult, challenging times, but I've always kind of felt I can ask for help, and I know what I don't know, and I'm all right with that. So I've never, not in the last sort of this stage of my career, I've never felt nervous saying, you know what, I got that wrong, and I learned to say sorry very early on. In fact, I was coaching. Everyone knows Danny Carter. I was coaching him, and I remember sitting with him, and I was nearly in tears, and he was really upset as well. And I said to him, "I need to apologise to you." He'd had a rough moment in a game or something, and I said, "I haven't done a good enough job with you." And I spoke to my mum about this, and I don't know what to do. And she said, "Well, did you coach him well?" I said, "I can't have done because he hasn't done a good. He's struggling, so I haven't, and that's me." And she said, "Well, you need to say sorry then." And I thought, "Wow, like that doesn't. That's tough. I'm in charge here. I'm the coach." And I just wrestled with it for a bit, and I sat with him. I said, "I'm really sorry that I haven't done a good enough job with you because you still are reacting in a way that I don't think is befitting for you." And it helped me turn a corner. And there's been lots of little things like that I think are just golden, from the moments of real despair and upset. And this is really difficult because everyone's looking at you for the answers and everything else, to be able to say, I'm really sorry that I got that wrong. And I've done it with players since, where I thought if they'd come to our club earlier, that they'd have been better. And one of them called me out on it, and he said, no, actually, I was at a different place, and it might not have been as good, it might not have been as another level, but I worked really, really hard. And I've learned a lot of very good lessons through coaching about me, and I think that is what I'd hope that's what other people see. And when I talk to a lot of coaches at the moment, and I think that vulnerability is something I'm more comfortable with now than I ever have been. And I think that's such an important element whenever we listen to any coaches at the moment. It echoes through. I listen to Sergio's and Lloyd Gardner's, and it's easy to just be yourself, but it's a tough thing to do because you've got to be right in the middle of everyone and in charge of everything and feel as though, you've got to discipline everyone. And I think we're moving on so quickly from that era, and I'm just glad. So I would say I'm enthusiastic. You'll see, I'm competitive, but I'm much more balanced now than I ever have been. I think, and I think that's a good thing when I'm working with Alan Keane. I give him a better I give him a better version of me now than I would have done 10 years ago, I think.
Okay, so just tell me a little bit about kind of that journey. You've kind of, you've kind of documented you kind of almost fell into coaching at university almost by
Mm,
default, and I absolutely know how that feels. That's kind of how
yeah.
I started as well. Um, you started your club, you were still playing, you were coaching at the club level, and then since then you've also been part of the England basketball England player player development pathway, and you've
Mm,
coached kind of at GB level. What
mm.
were those kind of steps like? Did were they massively challenging? Were they what you expected?
Yeah. Yeah, it was different because you'd coach domestically, you'd coach your club, I'd coach under 18s, whatever it would be, and I had a real thirst for seeing what the best stuff was doing, and I think I've always been quite hungry to. I felt I wanted to get to a level where, for the rest of my life, I could kind of associate myself with something where the best brains were. Then I wanted to know what they felt and how they moved and how they operated. Then I knew I could bring it back to my club and to the country if necessary. So I was really itchy to get to where the best stuff was being played, and I've kind of kept going like that, and that's why I've spent time in France or Spain or Italy, America, wherever it might be, just grabbing thoughts from everyone, thinking we can do that in England, we can do that, yes we can, no we can't. So it moved quite quickly for me. But I went from coaching club to Tim Lewis was coaching the England under 16s, I think it was at the time, and I was the pest on the phone saying, "Can I just come and watch?" I just went and watched every session for I think I must have done about 10 camps just watching. And once he said, "Look, we need someone to pass here. Can you help?" I said yes. And then we went to. Then he said, "Look, in 6 weeks' time, we're going to Bulgaria. One of the coaches can't go. Would you like to come and fill in as a fly on the wall?" And that was it. I was off and running, and I was like the second assistant. So I was so privileged for that. And then I managed to stay with him at the under 16s. I did the under 16 Europeans with the boys. We did the under 18s with the boys. And then and in those days, you did quite a lot of, you assisted for a number of years before you even considered. I think I did over a decade of assisting at various different teams and various different championships before I took the 20s women over at GB. And I loved it. Internationally, I loved it, but it was exhausting. And it was, for a young man, it was okay. We didn't have kids at the time, and I was doing 6, 7 weeks in the summer. I'd be away, whether it was coaching camps or tour, and it felt like nothing because I was coming back, have 4 days off, then you'd be back into September, and I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't change it, and I love it when you see the Adam Davises or the Billy Beddoes now, and they've got that same look in their eyes. I'm thinking, you wait till you've got kids and a mortgage, and all those other things that come along your way. But I think it's such a wonderful period of time. So I went through all the under 16s, under 18s with Tim Lewis and assistant coach to him for a bit when another guy dropped out. Then I went with Dave Titmus to the World Student Games because Chris Finch dropped out, I think. So they called Coach T, and he did it, and I was his assistant at the club. So it meant I just got an in, and we went and had just the most wonderful experience there. It was tough, really tough, playing some Australia and Lithuania and Mexico, playing some amazing stuff. But to be in a world level tournament just opened my eyes. In 2005, I think that was in Turkey, in Izmir. So it kind of went from there. And then GB took off, and I was very, very fortunate enough to be included in the GB under 20s. Damien Jennings called me and said, "Do you want to come and be my assistant?" I said, "I've never coached women before." And he said, "You'll be fine. Let's go." And, I went through the interview and did it. And I made 2 girls cry in the first session because I was just screaming at them. I apologized to them profusely at the end. And then me and him hit it off really well. We had and then that took me to 4 years of that. And then I was asked to head coach the GB under 20s with a group of 10 under 18s and one under 20. So it's a pretty, I say it really quickly, but it's really framed my existence for the last 20 years, I think.
So, with all those experiences, and I almost go back to the 45-page dossier that your dad produced, that you and your dad
Yeah.
produced. You talk about the building blocks for creating a club, and now
Mm,
you're one of the 25 years on. You're one of the more successful community clubs where you've got. I mean, I was actually, since we've had so much time during COVID-19, I've been kind of going through people's Instagram feeds and Twitter accounts,
Mm,
and I was actually watching your club awards, and one day I was listening to Steph talk about
mm,
a lot of the stuff that you maybe don't always associate with a basketball club, like all of the
mm,
outreach programs and feeding kids,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and it really, it gives you a sense of what can a club do if it does things right. And that's
yeah,
not right for everyone, but if
yeah,
it does things
totally.
right, if it's got a mission and it's really clear about what that mission is and it's willing to take some risks, what can a club achieve? So, the
Mm,
first thing is it's a bit of a shout out to you and your club, and what you are doing
appreciate
and the
it.
impact that you're having, not just in Reading, but around Berkshire and around the south of England. But tell me, what have you been able to bring from all of those other coaching experiences to
Mm.
enhance the club?
That's a cracker. That's a belter of a question, and it's one that I think about quite a lot actually. Volume is the first thing, and pathway is the second thing. And when I started going abroad, wherever it was, I was trying to figure out. And in fact, me and Lloyd Gardner were talking about it. Again, we're trying to find like what is it that's going on? What's the magic drill? What's everything else? And actually, you start to realise that it's 100 different things. And one of the things that's consistent across every other country that has more success, what we would say domestically than we do, is a volume and how that volume is managed. And I felt that's something that I couldn't help other people, or I couldn't help as a talent manager, or couldn't help on any groups that Basketball England want you to talk about if I didn't have a good grasp of understanding of what goes into good performance systems. So I started looking around, and as a very quick example, the first time I went to Malaga years ago, I went and they showed me the junior club where they had 750 juniors in one club in Malaga, 400 that were under 12, and it blew my head off because I thought we had an under 12 team, and I thought, yeah, this is really good. And then I went back and I said to Steph, we haven't even started. We have not even scratched the surface yet because that's one club. And then they had so many coaches, and then the coaches had to work really, really hard. And then I went to Estudiantes, and they had 48 teams, and in one place in Madrid, one club in Madrid had 48 teams. And I went and met them, and I was thinking, okay, there's more to this. Then I went to Lithuania, and the academies would have 150 under 12s try out for 15 spots. And if they made it in, they were in for 12 weeks, and then there's another trial. And if you didn't keep your spot, you're out again. So volume was the thing that kept coming back to me, that you have to have a certain amount of volume, and it stops kids going into a gym seeing 8 other players and going, well, I'm in the team because there's 10 in a team. When they're going to see 80, they go, well, wow, I might not make the team. I've got to commit to this so I can make a level. And you know what struck me was, it's the same for me in coaching, because you or I could walk into any club in the entire country and say, can we have a coaching job? And they'd say, yes, please, we need more coaches. That doesn't help us get better. What helps us get better is them say, no, put your CV in. We've got 40 people applying for this job. Why are you better than the next? So you've got to get all your stuff right. You've got to know your pre-season planning. You've got to know all your metrics. You've got to know all your data. You've got to know everything. So I think volume has played a bigger part of what I'm now thinking for both players and coaches. Hence, we're trying to build a big club because it satisfies volume and it creates what I'm terming environmental development. You develop because of the environment, not the in music, but the environment as in, because there's 4 teams at under 16s, you can play in one of them. But if you want to play in the first one, you've got to be better than 35 other kids or 50 other kids. So that has really come out over the last 5 to 10 years, and I'm using that experience to tell as many clubs as I can tell, because it really helps us, and it really helps the federation to understand that. Without it, you are always going to be pleading for volunteers and, please come and help take this team, and I've been there, I've done it, and I don't like doing that. I just don't think it's healthy. So yeah, I mean, 25 years, and it just feels, honestly, CJ, it feels like we're just getting started. If I'm honest, that's what it feels like to us. And that's just the way I feel. It's not me saying it. It's just how I feel. Like, oh, I'm just annoyed that if I knew now what I knew then, we'd be flying, because we'd now have 50 teams and 100 coaches or whatever. It's sort of that's kind of the biggest thing that I take away. Everything else will get better if you've got a load of volume and you've got a pathway for kids from where they start at 6 years old. Just have a fantastic time to going through the program, and not going up, you go along the program. These ones here aren't better because they play Division 1 than the ones that don't. They're just different. And I've learned that as well. I've learned that kids that play at a high level are no better than anyone else. They just need different things to others. So I'm starting to get my head around what I think we can do, and I think that I'm trying to share that with the federation as well. And seeing guys like Solent blossoming, is the more of those clubs, the better. So yeah, I'm quite passionate about it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, you are a little bit passionate about it, but that's not a bad thing at all. Now, look, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I've got about 15 questions left
Yeah,
to ask. So clearly, we're not going to
bang,
get that done. So you are going to have to come back for another interview.
anytime.
But the two questions I want to ask before we go: number one,
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about, and given that we've only got 5 minutes, you've got 2 minutes
yeah,
to answer. Tell me a little bit about the Spanish experiment, or the Spanish
yeah,
kind of approach within your club.
yeah. So we've got 17 different nations in the club. But when I went to Spain, I very quickly realised that the coach education system was a lot better than what we have here. So we brought over 2 coaches that happened to be living in Reading, got them involved, and they were significantly better and to be honest, harder working than some of the more domestic coaches we had. So we went down this route to try and see if that was going to work, and it worked, because it meant the kids were getting coached in a brilliant way. I don't care where the coaches come from. I care what the kids' experience is. So they all got better. They all stayed. They got to a level. It meant that we could bring over, in the first 3 years, 4 boys came to our academy, and now we don't have any Spanish boys. And then we've done the same thing with some of the girls, and it's been wonderful, because we've been able to put other kids that would never play against players of that caliber, or with coaches of that caliber, in a totally different environment, and every single one of the kids that's been with them has benefited. So it in a very quick, in a nutshell. But what I had with Lithuanians, we had Serbians, and we had Russians. I went through the whole lot, and Americans. And then it was just trying to find a nation or people that would be with us. And then in our presentation evening, we had 350 people there and 17 different nations. It's just wonderful. It's a global game, and Spain's the best in Europe for it. So I used them for a bit to kind of keep giving us what we didn't have, which was coaches. And then they were able to give us a few players, which helped keep our standards up and drive the academy at the beginning. So it was, I learned so much. And if you spend any time in Spain as a basketball person, it's like getting into a cool shower when you're boiling hot. It's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. And I'm in Valencia, and they've got 100 teams or 40 teams training every week. 100 coaches. Who was coaching our under 18 girls, Bly, is coaching the under 10 boys second team, and he was the best coach in our club, and he's now under 10 boys second team. So yeah, it's been brilliant, mate. It's really helped me understand properly how to do basketball.
Excellent. So last question before we say goodnight for the evening.
Yeah,
And this is the question I ask in different ways, probably every week. But as a coach developer, as a coach mentor, what advice would you give to coaches? I mean, you just referenced that maybe some of our coaches don't work hard enough, and I'm sure that's not a criticism. It's more of a kind of a direction. What
yeah,
are
it's
the kind of
context.
things that coaches should be doing more of in the UK in the off
Yeah,
season to be ready and to be better,
yeah,
to create those kind of those the correct environment for our
yeah.
kids for the coming season?
2 really quick ones. Find yourself a mentor that is strict and will push you and will tell you the truth, and has done something. That is not a theorist. Coaching is a practical skill. The theory underpins it, and that leads me to the second thing, which is coach. You've got to coach. I said to every young coach that, I was coaching 4 teams for nearly a decade because I just had to coach, I didn't do it on purpose to go, I'm going to be a good coach, because it just helped me know I just got to mistakes quicker. And I think that's what you need to do with the players. If players have lots of experience, they get to their mistakes quicker. They can then get over their mistakes. By the time they're 12, if they've been playing 6 years, like they are in Spain and Italy, by the time they're 12, they know what the game feels like. For coaches like us, if you don't start coaching till you're 25, you coach 2 sessions a week for an hour and a half, and you do that for 3 seasons, you're doing about what a coach in Italy will do in 6 weeks. So I think just get out there, get coaching, and get into the environment and contextually understand where you are. So go to Spain, America, France, Germany, go to the big countries. So when you come back, you feel as though you know where you are on this in this globe, because we're small. And the mistake you make is to think, well, because I'm wanted as a coach in England, I'm good. No, I learned that very, very quickly. I'm nobody. And I was nobody when I was coaching GB. I was a nobody in that tournament. And I felt really good about that. I felt as though I was respecting the sport that way. And then I continued to work really, really hard on my craft. So those two things, get a mentor that will really be honest with you, and get coaching.
Excellent. Well, look, given the context of which that started this channel and got us up and running, which was really COVID-19, which has led to lots of
Mm.
social distancing and a lot of time away from the court. That's given, hopefully, it's given coaches a lot of time for reflection, and I think it's motivated quite a lot of people to find different ways of communicating with
Yeah,
coaches,
yeah,
accessing kind of knowledge and expertise, watching games, maybe going back and watching their games over the season. So whilst
yeah,
it might not be physically easy right now to go and go to Spain and go to Germany and go to Italy.
yeah,
In fact, there's
yeah,
probably at least 2 countries you don't want to go to right now.
yeah, yeah,
What you
yeah,
can do is you can utilize the internet, you can utilize social
yeah,
media, you can contact people on Facebook, on Instagram, through Twitter, and you
yeah,
can start
everything.
making those connections right now. You don't need to wait until airports are open and we can all
Yeah,
kind of, get in touch with each other, get to gyms, etc. So, Matt, I
yeah.
want to really thank you because, when you
Pleasure,
when
buddy.
you when you interview a friend, you're not ever quite sure where it's going to go. And like tonight, we got through a lot of our material. You really, I will contact you again for that 45-page dossier, which I will then sell on the internet to anybody who wants it.
Yeah,
The
handwritten
A to
notes.
Z's of how to create a community club. Really
How to get it
appreciate
wrong.
you and your dad.
Yeah,
Say
yeah,
hi to your
yeah.
wife and my
Of
sons,
course it
or
will.
your
Yeah,
children.
yeah,
And
yeah.
love you so much, dude. Thank you very
Yeah, and
much.
you, mate. Thanks for your time, CJ. It's brilliant what you're doing, mate.
Thank you. See you later, Matt.
Take
Good
care.
night, everyone. Stay safe, stay at home, and we'll see you next week.